2020. Roll call, Jake.
Mark Eastman.
Here.
Jim Morrison.
Here.
Paul Bissonnette.
Here.
Peter Stewart.
Here.
Dan Ormsby. Dan Ormsby.
Here.
Kathy Downs.
Here.
Ed Rankin.
Here.
Item 3 is presentation of any town council recognitions. I don't believe we have any. Item 4 is consider minutes of the previous meetings. We have town council minutes from 8/13/2020 and infrastructure committee minutes from 8/13/2020. How would the council like to proceed?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Jake?
Mark Eastman.
Approve.
Jim Morrison.
Approve.
Paul Bissonnette.
Approve.
Peter Stewart.
Approve.
Dan Ormsby.
Approve.
Kathy Downs.
Approve.
Ed Rankin.
Approve.
Next is correspondence. We have a report, August 1st, 2020, sheriff is stepped at the Penobscot Narrows Bridge. Any questions on that? Pretty cut and dry. Item 6 is ordinances to consider. We have a second reading of the ordinance to amend the town charter, section 9.04. Number 2, to change the referendum voting requirement from 250,000 to 300,000. We will have a public hearing on this at our next meeting on September 10th. That way we could get it advertised, and that will still give us time to get it on the ballot if it's approved.
It would, but just barely. Jacob has to have the proofs back. He told me that he could do it if we did it on the 10th and it was approved, but I guess it would be helpful to have an idea of where the council is on this as we move this forward, to know sort of what people think about it now. There wasn't a lot of discussion last time, but if there's questions or concerns or reluctance or anything, it would be, or just be nice to have some feedback, because it was kind of quiet at the first reading. It's quiet at the second reading. So.
Well, if I could find my mute button.
Rich, do you have something to add on this one, Rich? You're muted. Well, after the meeting, Rich pointed out that the DOT grant that we did receive, is this correct, Rich? Allows for us to get the $25,000 that we couldn't take because of the spending limit included with the DOT grant, if it's approved.
Paul, do you have something you wanted to say?
I was just going to say I'm not, especially where this would go to the voters. I have no opposition to it, to putting this forward.
I agree. I don't have any opposition to it. I think it's fine putting it forward, and if it works for us, then
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I have no problem with it either.
That's helpful in knowing sort of where we're likely going with this at the next meeting.
Anything else on that? All right, so we will set that for a public hearing when we get down there to that. Temporary repair and establish a committee for long-term repair. Sue?
If there's going to be baseball in the spring, we need to have a temporary repair to that, to the baseball field wall and fence, because right now it's not usable the way it is. And I say temporary because a long-term fix for that facility involves drainage changes on that hill, so that it's not basically a waterfall down over the back. And that will require some engineering and a more thoughtful look at what you want to replace what's there with. So my request is, and there's is to be able to put out bids for a temporary fix, whether that's rocks, whether that's fencing, however it is, so that the field can be usable in the spring if necessary. And we would need to get that going. If spring sports are going to occur, then we need to have the facility ready to be utilized. But I thought if we put it out bids for a temporary repair or a temporary solution, and had a committee at the same time that was working on a long-term solution, that we would be, by spring, the committee could have decided a more permanent solution that might take a year or two to get done, actually, because of funding and engineering and those kind of things, but the facility would be usable in the short term. And I was thinking, when I'm thinking of a temporary repair cost, it's $5,000 to $7,000 is for fencing and rocks or whatever it is to stabilize that wall for the interim period.
So you need a motion, Sue?
Not to put anything out to bid. We don't do resolves for that. I just need consensus. If there's objections to putting that out to bid, number one, or objections to a committee for this, and certainly council members, but the school needs to be involved in this. They're part of this. There may be community members that want to participate. I think that it deserves a good discussion about what the future of that facility looks like in terms of that whole back wall. And
Is there any opposition to having the town manager seek out a bid request to see where we are with this? Are there any volunteers from the council that would like to? I would say maybe chair this committee or be on it.
I'll be on it, Peter.
I was already looking at you, Ed, so you were going to be on it anyway, just so you know.
I got to brush my colors on tonight.
That's exactly right. So, Mark, did you say you wanted to be on it? Okay, I think 2 councils will be more than enough, and that will limit us up. And I assume, Sue, that you can put out the feelers for other folks, or however we want to fill this committee up. Check with Jim, or maybe, or.
I will check with Jim, and I know that Rich's calendar is pretty full, but I think Rich would be a good addition, a good person to be a staffer on this as well.
Yep. Well, I already had him penciled in too, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, well, me too, but I thought I'd ask to be nice.
All right. So any questions or comments? I don't see any opposition.
And I'll advertise in the enterprise for community members who are interested, and then you can maybe pick 3. I don't want a committee that's 100 people, but you could solicit input and then make decision based on that.
I will leave it to the committee members to decide what their makeup is, but I think that sounds good. So, all right. So everybody's okay with Sue going forward to at least solicit see what we're at. Okay. School board member resignation, Jennifer Tarian.
Jennifer's resigned. She's taking a job that doesn't allow her to serve on the school board, but her term is also up in November, and so we're already advertising for candidates for her position come November. So the board you have the option of either appointing a replacement to fill in the interim or not. Just because this is a short term between now and November, and a new candidate will take over after the election in November anyway. So it's up to the council to decide whether you want to solicit names and go through that process and then appoint from whenever the, we'll say the end of September after you solicited names and did interviews and did that kind of stuff until the first week in November.
I'll just throw out a quick thought. I would like to keep it consistent with our town council rules. And I think we already have a process in place of our timeline that we would fill a position if it popped open, which this would not fall inside of that. So I think we just let the election fall. If I'm mistaken on that, please let me know. But that's sort of where I was leaning with that. Anybody else's thoughts on that? Or?
Not be filling the position.
I would agree.
No, I would agree.
I agree
Yeah,
as well. Unless the superintendent of schools has come to you with a pressing need to fill that position in the interim, I would agree with the mayor, absolutely.
I spoke with the superintendent about this, and he indicated that they could, they should be okay from.
Perfect.
I would think that the level of importance of their next few meetings would weigh in as to whether or not it should be done or not.
What was that, Jim? I'm sorry, I missed that.
But the need, the extensive need, if there's a lot of need for having the full board for the next couple of months, then yeah, I would say appoint somebody. But if there's not a heavy schedule for them, then I guess
Sure. Yeah, and it sounded like what the superintendent was saying that they could operate without that person for that short term. So is that the way you understood it?
That is the way I understood it. And the other thing that impacts this is the process would have to go through to get to where you were going to appoint somebody. It involves time. You have to advertise for candidates. You have to do interviews. There's a whole process that would put you out beyond. It's not like you could just appoint somebody tonight. That your process doesn't allow for that. So it would probably be a month out before you could, and then you just shorten the term to a month, and that's not. I don't think that would be very worthwhile to the school board.
Yeah, I think I'd still like to lean with what I mentioned earlier. If everybody's okay with that, and we'll go forward with that.
I agree with that too, Peter.
All right, thanks. Not seeing any way. Parks and Recreation rules review.
Councilor Ormsby had asked about this last time and where we were with our rules and if anything had changed. And as everyone is aware, I'm sure, the MPA today came down with its decision on fall sports, which is that they could be played. That isn't the final decision because it goes up a level from that to the governor. And then beyond that, each individual school district will, based on, unless the state says nobody's going to do anything anywhere, each school district will have its own decision to make on whether or not fall sports plays or not. That being said, our opening of our facilities has been based on the community sports regulations that were promulgated by the Maine CDC, and at this point those have not changed. If and when the MPA procedure is given its blessing to move forward, that would perhaps eliminate the need for the rules that we have at the basketball courts, which is the biggest one that's impacted by this. But as of right now, the regulations that we set these rules under haven't been modified by the state or the CDC. But by the time we have our next meeting, I think we're going to have a whole lot more information about where organized athletics are going for the fall, and I'm not sure if locally there would have been time for the school here to make a decision if they have to, but I think all of that information would give you more information if you decided to alter how, as I said, primarily it's how the basketball courts, because that's the area that limits contact in terms of everyone has to have their own basketball as opposed to you can have everybody playing with one. So that's kind of where it is right now in terms of the rules. They haven't changed on the state level based on what we came up with them. I spoke with Public Safety Director Gagan earlier. He has a family commitment this evening, but and he had indicated that it was okay, and he just sent me a message that says we have only had a few issues at the basketball court, and most people playing there have complied, and we now see everyone there with their own basketball. So it has been used, but they've been primarily following the guidelines for use at this time. So, you know, that's where are the rules? The rules are the same place they were before at the state level. What has happened is there's been varying types of interpretation and enforcement of those rules in communities across the state. Some have been very liberal in their construction of how these rules ought to operate, and that has allowed for a whole lot more to take place than has taken place here. But as I said, these are the reason they were set the way they were is that we felt that they complied with the regulations that the CDC had put forward.
Any questions on that? Or?
I'd be happy to carry this forward. As I said, in 2 weeks we will have a lot more information. This decision that came out today is fresh off the press and hasn't been very far up the line. Many of the allowance for football is a maximum of 100 people. That includes all the coaches, all the players. If you have teams that come together, that when you put the teams and everybody together, it's too many. Not everybody can come. There can't be anybody else at the field. You know, that limits to no fans. This is going to be a discussion, no matter how it moves forward. So
I'm thinking too, can we just make sure to revisit it as those MPA rules come out and we decide? Because I get it, but I also think that we need to, if we can, give them the least restrictive environment that we can for what rules were handed, so that they have stuff to do and we can do things as safely as possible too. So, but I'd like to revisit again when that comes back up.
Absolutely. This, as I said, this came out this afternoon, and there hasn't, to my knowledge, been any reaction from the CDC or the governor's office or anyone in regard to that yet, at least that I've seen. Rich, have you seen any? I don't know where he is.
So I'm not Rich, but from work I've been following both the plans of communities, but also the impact that fall sports would have too, just based on what I do for work. And I've seen nothing right up until this meeting started in terms of a reaction to the Principals Association stuff, if that helps.
Okay, Rich says that DHHS is supposed to weigh in on this, and they have not done so yet. Rich's microphone is not working. That's why he's translating through my phone. But that's where that is right now, is that DHHS is also reviewing this.
So we will keep it on the front burner And
I'll leave it on the agenda for next time so that we can continue to look at it.
Thank you.
the next item is the sludge site hayfield contract put out for bid.
Yes, we had a contract with Rob Manor of Frankfort for 2 years with a 2-year renewal, and that expired last year. And we have the two fields up off Upper Long Pond Road, one that the town owns and one that is owned by the Whites, but which is managed by the town, which is a former sludge site. We haven't done sludge on the fields in many years, but we do keep them mowed and hayed and the brush and trees cut back to prevent it from reverting to trees. And while Mr. Manor is interested in doing this, our process has been that after a contract and an extension is expired, we generally put it out to see who else is interested. This is not a contract where we're paying them. They get the hay in return for doing the work. But there are also a number of local farmers who do haying, and I think that I would like the opportunity to put this out so that we can see what we get for letters of interest on this, and then you can decide who you want to do this work for the next several years.
Any questions or comments on this, or everybody okay with that idea?
I have a question.
Yes, Kath.
So will this contract be for a certain amount of time? You said several years. Do you mean it will be a 3-year contract, 2-year?
The last one was 3 years with a 2-year extension if it was completed satisfactorily, and that was done when Derek was here in 2015. And there have been a couple of issues since then, but nothing we couldn't manage. But as I said, it's been our practice that when you've gone through all the extensions on a contract that were listed in the contract, we usually rebid it so that it allows others an opportunity to participate.
Well, so it will go out as a 3-year and then a 2-year extension if all.
Well, I don't know that I would add
if
that.
it's met. Okay.
I think I might leave it 3 years. We've
3 years.
3
Yep.
years. Most
That's
of
good.
our stuff is 3 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? I see everybody's okay with it though, so we'll let Sue go forward with that process. Good. Final item under discussion is the MDOT culvert replacement grants for Jacob Buck Pond and Bucks Mills. There's quite a lot of information that was in the packet. Hopefully everybody got a chance to see it. We will have a resolve coming up on this to put it out to vote. Anything further to add on that, Sue?
Just that this is the project we talked about, that we had gotten the grants from MDOT this past year, and these are expensive culvert replacements. You can see from all the documentation why. They're huge and they're not in great shape. But and I understand that $560,000 is a lot of money. $750,000 is more, and at some point, the town will have to replace these culverts because they won't last forever. And so with the opportunity for the grant funding, additionally, I'm just asking that we put it would have to go to the voters anyways. It's more than, it's a big number. And let them decide as to what, and it really decides whether we can accept these grants or not. Because if it's voted down, we don't do the grants, and then what would happen in the long term is we do one over time and then the other over time, because, as I said, they're expensive. But they're high priority culvert replacements on DOT's list. So
And I assume once if it's passed to at least put to the voters, there'll be some way that they can access all that information off our website. Is that how they get all that?
yes,
All right, we can discuss a little bit more when we get to the resolve here in a second, just if folks have questions. Speaking of agenda items, the first is to approve Resolve 2021-14 to approve the bid of Camden National Bank for 1.98% for year one of the road project. How would the council like to proceed?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. So why is this only for 1 year? Why wouldn't it be why could we not get it for several years or?
we could, but the repayment on these is 7 years. And so if we borrow 1.2 million and our first payment on that for 7 years would be in September of 2021, which is the next year. And if you borrow for year 2 for 7 years, the first year would be September of 2022. It staggers the repayment. Each loan is 7 years, but it actually spreads it over 10 years, so you're not paying on $3 million every single year. If you borrow it all at once, that's what you have to do. You have to pay for it. And if you do it as a line of credit or a construction type loan, then you don't have to draw on it all at once, but you only have 7 years from once the borrowing was done. And so in order to minimize the impact to the budget overall, for the first year there would be year 1. In the second year of payments there would be a year 1 and 2. In the third year there'd be 1, 2, and 3. But when you get to year 5, you're back down to 2 and then 1. But
I guess my question is though, are we playing roulette by hoping that the interest rates are going to stay low? Because if we all of a sudden if something happens and they spike up and now we're going to be stuck with a 4 or 5% interest rate. I'm just asking. I don't know.
If it looked like in the spring that rates were going to go through the roof or something that was going to be different, we're a little over % under what we estimated this borrowing would be for this time. I guess if interest rates were rising, you could do the whole thing the second year. I truly don't believe that that's the direction we're going. I'm not a.
I guess is it possible to go negotiate these rates at any time? I guess so. If we thought that they were going to start spiking up, could we approach Camden and say, look, we want to lock in
and bid year 2 and 3 tomorrow if you wanted to.
Okay. All right. I guess that answers my question. I just wanted to make sure that if we had the opportunity at some point in the future, if we saw things were changing drastically, that we could go out and bid those today.
And you also have the option on how we build this as a 3-year project. If in year 2 something, I hate to say it, more traumatic happens than we've already had in this year, then you could put out year 2 for a year to the third year. There's this authorization for the road work is for X amount of road work to be done, and the repayment on each of those loans to be 7 years. So I was really trying to spread out the payments so that the overall impact was, for the middle years, was further out from next year rather than starting off paying on $3 million next year.
Sure. Any other questions on this? Or We have a motion and a second. Anything out from the public on this, Sue?
Nothing? No. No email, and the phone's not ringing.
Okay, Jake,
Mark Eastman,
Approve?
Jim Morrison,
Approve.
Paul Bissonnette,
Approve.
Peter Stewart,
approve.
Dan Ormsby,
Approve.
Kathy Downs,
Approve.
Ed Rankin.
Approve.
Item B is to approve Resolve 2021-15 to designate the Economic Development Director to market the 27 Main Street property. How would the council like to proceed?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Sue? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I wrote the resolve based on our discussion at the last council meeting, and it included in it the flat fee for any realtor who brought a project or buyer to the town that was approved by the council. It's one thing to have somebody who might want to buy it. It's the second thing to be somebody that the council will approve whatever that development is. So it's whoever's successful. This is, and I didn't make it council, but it's no bad reflection on Two Rivers of the work they've done on behalf of the town at all. They have certainly advertised it the way we've asked them to for a number of years. There was a question raised as to whether, because they had done that for 5 years, that there was the town would owe them something. But it's my understanding in the real estate business that if you sell something, you get something, and if you don't sell something, you don't. And when Two Rivers was instrumental in the sale of the Feldman property at 18 Franklin Street, Federal Street, that the town sold it for $8,000 and they got $480 in commission at the time of the sale, which was 6% of the price. But again, the sort of bringing it in-house was, I think, an effort to streamline the process a little bit, if that's the right way, and that it would be, and maybe we give this for a year and see how this works. I mean, you've tried the way you've had it for 5 years, and we've not gotten there.
Any comments? You okay with this, Rich? Good. All right, hearing none.
It's like into a yes.
Right. Jake, go ahead.
Mark Eastman,
Approve?
Jim Morrison,
Approve.
Paul Bissonnette,
Approve.
Peter Stewart,
Approve.
Dan Ormsby,
Approve.
Kathy Downs,
Approve.
Ed Rankin.
Approve.
Item C is to approve Resolve 2021-16 to request voter approval for the expenditure of up to $560,000 as the town share of the cost of replacement of 2 culverts on Jacob Buck Pond and Bucks Mills Road as a match grant funding of $190,000.
Motion to approve?
I'm sorry?
A motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? And this will be on this ballot. We're good to get it on this year's ballot. Okay. And the documentation will be available because, like I say, there's a lot to look at. I think that will help drive decisions one way or the other.
This like the road bond, will have an explanatory sheet with it on what's involved in it, what the repayment terms are, those kind of things, so people can understand what it is, why it is, and all of that before they vote.
And at some point, Sue, before I was thinking about this when this was on there, can we get just a breakdown of what, if this passed, what our expenditures would be on debt service? Just so we can.
We have to do that. We have to submit a financial statement with the.
But for everything that we have, that we can sort of, I know it's there. I just would like to be able, if we have it on one sheet, maybe that
We
would
do.
sort of.
The financial statement has to include all of our debt service.
Yeah, and I think that would help folks just sort of see where we're at, if we're okay, if we're overextended, or what we're looking at too. So that would be great. Thanks. Anything else? Jake?
Mark
Anything from the
Eastman.
public?
No.
Sorry about that, Jake. Go ahead.
Mark Eastman.
Approve.
Jim Morrison.
Approve.
Paul Bissonnette.
Approve.
Peter Stewart.
Approve.
Dan Ormsby.
Approve.
Kathy Downs.
Approve.
Ed Rankin.
Approve.
Item 9 is resignations, appointments, assignments, and elections. There is a reminder that nomination papers are available until September 3rd. That is for 2 council seats, 2 3-year seats, and 1 RSU seat, Sue, or 2? 2
Two.
RSU seats, which includes the one that's just resigned. That's what it is, right? Yeah. Okay. And those can be, you have those, Jake, they just stop at the town office, correct?
Correct.
And it needs to be turned in by the 3rd, or it can be picked up till the 3rd?
Turned in by the 3rd. And close of business hours on the 3rd.
Thank you. Item 10 is approval of quick claims, discharges, and deeds. We have a couple here, so we'll take them one at a time. First is Kelly J. Albert, map 47, lot 13-1, 2018 tax lien.
Motion to
Actually-
approve.
Yes, go ahead. Have a motion and a second. Any comments? Jake?
Mark Eastman.
Approve.
Jim Morrison.
Approve.
Paul Bissonnette.
Approve.
Peter Stewart.
Approve.
Dan Ormsby.
Approve.
Kathy Downs.
Approve.
Ed Rankin.
Approve.
The next is Janie Cirillo, map 32, lot 26, 2013 to 2018 tax liens.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any comments? Jake?
Mark Eastman.
Approve.
Jim Morrison.
Approve.
Bissonnette.
Approve.
Peter Stewart.
Approve.
Dan Ormsby.
Abstain.
Kathy Downs.
Approve.
Ed Rankin.
Approve.
The next 3 are the same person, so we'll take all 3 of those. The first is Timothy R. Jerome, map 8, lot 57, 2018 tax lien. Also has Timothy R. Jerome, map 8, lot 60, 28 tax lien. And Timothy R. Jerome, map 8, lot 63, 28 tax lien.
So move.
Motion to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Anything further from the council? Jake?
Mark Eastman.
Approve.
Jim Morrison.
Approve.
Paul Bissonnette.
Approve.
Peter Stewart.
Approve.
Dan Ormsby.
Approve.
Kathy Downs.
Approve.
And Ed Rankin.
Approve.
Thank you. Next item is town manager report. Sue?
Our Community and Economic Development Director, Rich Rotella, and I were invited to an event on the waterfront this morning to accept the donation of a granite bench from the high school class of 2020. The inscription on the bench is inspiration through isolation. The class officers, advisor, and principal were present for the dedication. Hats off to these amazing young people who truly made lemonade out of the lemons that they were given, which essentially shut down the last half of their senior year. And if you have a chance, the bench is located directly across from Flag Point, right on the other side of the walkway. It's really beautiful, and the students were very gracious when they made the presentation today. I participated in a video conference with representatives of AARP, their contractor, Fourth Economy, and representatives from 3 other communities who have been invited to participate in this dashboard project. There's no cost to the town of Bucksport, and the information that is being compiled for this online site will be another great tool for the town to use not only in marketing ourselves outside the community, but as a resource for our residents as well. It's a website that will have all the communities who have participated in this project. And if you click on the community, you get a broad swath of information about the community and its resources. And as I said, there isn't any cost. We upload them information, and Fourth Economy is the one who does all the inputting and all of the formatting of information. So it's much less time consuming on our part than I had anticipated it was going to be. Committee Chair Kathy Downs has scheduled a cemetery committee meeting for Tuesday, September 1st, 2020 at 1 o'clock. The meeting will be held virtually and will be viewed on local cable channel 1303 or via the internet at Town Hall Streams in the same way our council meetings are. Comments or questions prior to the meeting can be emailed to Councillor Downs, KL Downs at bucksportmaine.gov, or during the meeting to me at slassard@bucksportmaine.gov. And people can also call into the meeting when it's happening at 469-7368. First half of our 2021 taxes are due by Monday, August 31st, to avoid interest. Thus far, as of today, we have collected 43.5% of our total tax commitment, which I think is pretty awesome.
Any questions for Sue? Next item is set public hearings or hold public hearings and approve any licenses or permits.
One more thing.
Of course there was.
The committee that's talking with our marketing professionals, I think Rich is going to talk about this, but can you talk yet, Rich?
Oh, that's right. I was going to wait until he could talk, but he can't talk, so go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say the marketing study, a group has been reviewing some of the information that's been submitted and going over ideas for a tagline for the town, and that is a work in progress at this point, but it's ongoing. That was it. Sorry.
Yep. Nope. I forgot Rich couldn't talk because I figured he'd forgot about that. But, so set public hearings or license or permits. We don't have any licenses or permits. We will have a public hearing on the charter change on our next meeting, which is September 10th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Discussion items not on the agenda for the council or the public. We got anything, Sue, an email or anything we're going to talk about, or?
No.
Anybody at the council have anything?
I just had a quick statement, Peter.
Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Regarding it was a small article in the Enterprise last week, I think, about the suggestion that we do a committee for overlooking the entire town's vehicle, whatever it was, 40 vehicles or whatever. I wouldn't be opposed to it. It doesn't mean that much to me one way or the other. I think it's pretty good the way it is, but just wanted to let people know that as far as I'm concerned, before we've done several votes, I've contacted Matt Pierce and talked to him about the vehicles. And Matt is very good at what he does. and very trustworthy. And I think that was probably two reasons why he was hired. So he does a very good job, and I have reached out with him, and he's willing to talk to me at any time, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind if I stopped out and wanted to see something. But he is very good at what he does. That's it. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? I've got one thing, Sue, and I've had several folks that have made complaints about the new pavement that's been laid down, especially the entrances into their driveways. That they've been, where the new pavement's been put in, and then all of a sudden they've created a dip coming into people's driveways, and the dip has been made steeper because of the height of the tire that's come in, and it's also not. It hasn't been very far extended into folks' driveways. There's concern that when the winter comes around, they're just going to end up plowing up the edge and stuff like that. And riding around, I noticed, looking at some of the jobs that the state has done, they've actually got a lot longer transition piece from the road into folks' driveways than what I think we got here. One of the folks actually had the paving company. They were there when they were doing it, and they mentioned that, that's quite a dip there, and the paving company did fix their dip. I'm wondering how many other folks out there are in that same position, and if anybody's contacted us about that or anything. We put out a lot of money, and I want to make sure we have a quality project that, isn't going to affect folks when, in a short amount of time when they start using these, and there's some buildup with snow and things like that, and these dips become a little more unmanageable than what they are. So I don't know if that's something that you could have Jay look into, just to or if we've got it, and maybe we don't have any other complaints, and it was just a couple folks that talked to me. I don't know. But.
We have had 3 people who've contacted me, and we've gone out and addressed every single one of those that were the extension of the pavement out into even field entrances and those kind of things has been done. That's not always necessary. What generally happens is when we do the edging, it levels it up, but it's not always included. And for some, the lip goes into a gravel driveway that hasn't been maintained well over time. And the dip is created by the fact that the driveway itself was low.
Yep.
And so some of those have been corrected, so to speak, when we've gone back and done the edging. Because if it's low across the end of the driveway, we're not skipping that when we're doing edging. They're filling it in to pick it back up. And when it's pavement, it generally connects to the pavement. But yeah, we're aware of this and working.
Okay.
When anyone contacts me, I immediately put them in touch with Jay. And this project is far from over. So if anything needs to be corrected, we still have that possibility. And I am withholding 10% of every invoice until the project is done to our satisfaction. So
Great. Thank you. Anybody got anything else? All right. Item 14 is upcoming public hearings topic for committee assignments and committee meetings. I don't believe we have any committee meetings, just the public hearing that we've set. Is that correct?
that's correct.
One thing, Peter?
Yep.
I was hoping we could get, I've spoken to Rich a little bit, get Economic Development Committee meetings going again, either next month or October, if that's possible.
They'd have to be virtual, obviously, for a while,
Right.
I think. Until, yeah.
Yep.
Do you want to wait until our next meeting and then try to set it up in September when you get, that way we can figure out where everything's going with athletics and everything else? And,
Yep, that sounds good.
Maybe we can have that will give us some folks on that group that may want to work on some of those other projects too. So.
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And by then, I think we might have a better idea from what we talked about yesterday, Rich, with Design Lab. They may have something come back for you, so give you a chance to take a head start with that. All righty. The only other thing, and I assume that our next meeting will be the same way. I don't think we're going to have any changes. So let's plan on our first meeting in September, continuing in this format, and we will see where we're at with how everybody's got through their first week or two of school and where things stand and how things are looking, and maybe we can address getting back together at some point right after that. So again, thank everybody for their patience and doing a good job with this, and keep up the good work. Last item is adjournment. And as always, show of hands. All those in favor? Have a great night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Night.
No motion.